Hey people. Um, I did my cabaret again today. I I have to say, I enjoyed it. I had a lovely time. I had more fun. I I don't know if I had more fun, but I felt more comfortable than the first time. I felt more settled in. I think it's so interesting. I mean, this is just my personality. As soon as I'm the kind of person who comes off stage and immediately wants to start analyzing what I did, immediately wants to start thinking about how it went. And, I talked about this after my last time around. I kind of recognized that one of the reasons I do that is because it gives me a feeling of safety to be in critic mode. If I'm in critic mode, it doesn't even matter if I am the object of the criticism. I myself am the object of the criticism. If I can adopt the posture of the critic relative to myself, then the part of me that's being the critic feels secure, and the part of me that's being critiqued is not so conscious. It's actually it's like been jettisoned and objectified, turned into something to be regarded and analyzed, and so it gives me this feeling of, it gives my ego, I should say, this feeling of safety or security around that. And I do notice that happening a little less this time around, which I take as a good sign. I still kind of went into that as when I finished, but it was less than last time. And on an even more sort of profound level, I found that it was almost like it almost felt normal to do this. And I think it was interesting because we had friends coming over for dinner, and I mean, they showed up 15 minutes after I finished. It was like I finished, took down the red curtain, and they showed up. That was it. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time to like sit around and reflect or be, I didn't, there wasn't a lot of afterglow time. It was just kind of like, okay, on to the next part of my day, part of our life. And that also gave the practice of this process a feeling of simply being a component of my life. It's just part of what I do now. I've only done it twice, but there's more to come. I announced that I'm doing it every week because it feels right. It feels right to not give myself too much time in between. What I'm noticing is there may come a time when I do need to take a little more time. And when I do actually want to do a bit more preparation and honing before I do a performance. But right now, it's liberating and it's almost vital that I don't do too much of that. I almost have to deprogram myself from any of my training in order to allow it to come through. I get so bound up around what it is and what I'm doing that when I try to really kind of hone it, that for right now, it's almost like I just have to sort of turn that part of my brain off and just show up and do this. And I think I'll know when it's time. I think I'll know when it's time for that to shift, because the what I am noticing, what I will say is, and this is something I've known about creative projects for some time, which is that the risk that I'm taking is a sizable. Well, let me say this correctly. I was going to say the risk that I'm taking is a component of the satisfaction, right? if I really feel like I'm taking a risk, if I really feel like I'm going somewhere that involves risk, it's like then I feel a real sense of accomplishment. You know what I mean, right? No big surprise there. But I think what I'm trying to train myself is how to maybe not even think of it as risk. Maybe it's not risk. Maybe it's not like, what if I do this and fail, right? It's not so much that feeling of like, what if something goes wrong? Like the sort of energy or the excitement of the experience is contingent upon there being danger. But what if it's the intention? What if the intention, the depth of the intention, and the kind of true connection to a purpose, to something higher, to something that is deeply important to me? What if that becomes the metric that I'm going off of? What if that becomes the driver? So rather than being a kind of, I'm going to overcome this fear, or I'm going to defy the odds, or I'm going to, whatever kind of, which sounds a lot like ego when you really listen to that voice. It sounds a lot like the ego kind of saying, do this so that you'll be great, so that you can feel great about yourself or whatever. And that's just becoming less interesting to me. I think that that's not what this is about. Even though I know there's a part of me that's still doing that, there is that ego component that really does want to like be great, do something amazing. That's not the part of me that is most fundamental to this. That's not where it's emanating from. And it's also not the part of me that has the most interesting ideas. It's the part of me that becomes the veil of scrutiny or judgment, that I'm the precise thing that I'm trying to shed, the literal thing that I'm trying to deactivate in my psyche and sort of put aside, and almost not give it any way in. Almost just give myself. That's the whole thing about like kind of showing up with very little preparation and just an intention, is like, if I prepare and I really craft this thing, then I can be very critical of it. And whereas if I'm just making myself available and I'm just showing up with what's here and I'm allowing, then it's almost like that part of me that wants to be critical. It's kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? I don't have anything to say. I can't gain any traction here. And again, I think the day will come when I really do start constructing this, when I really do start working on it and I do start developing it. But I know myself. I know I've kind of got to be careful with how I dose the intention around that, because it's really easy to go from, I have an enthusiasm about, writing a certain thing or creating a certain moment or whatever. It's easy at this point. It's easy for me to go from that into something where the ego is kind of involved. And I'm just learning. I'm trying to teach myself through this process to deactivate that. The greatest artists I've ever seen, they do incredible construction. They do impeccable, highly elegant, highly sophisticated construction of their work. But their ego's not in the way. It's the source that it's coming from, that all the little bells and whistles are hung on. the bells and whistles for all of the kind of fancy, thrilling effect that they produce are not the trunk of the tree. They're not the center. They're not the core. And what I'm trying to do is say, all right, no bells and whistles until I've got the core. As the core starts to live and starts to feel like, I know what this is. I get it. Here, I'm standing on solid ground here. I actually feel this activating within me, and I know I can fully trust this. At that point, I think I'll be able to hang more ornaments on it without tarnishing it or without becoming distracted by by that part of it. So it's just my reflection upon immediately finishing it. But it feels really good to be back. It feels really good to have done that again. I'm so thankful to any of you who might have seen it. It's just really awesome to have this door opening to this creative thing that I've wanted to do for so long, and it's finally happening. I'm finally doing it. It's very thrilling. I appreciate all the love and support. Thanks so much. I'll see you tomorrow.